In this video, I'm going to share with you the keys to developing preparedness strategy. Now, there is a lot of prepping content out there, but the problem with it is most of it is very general. And the reality is your situation is very unique. Your family is unique. Where you live and the likelihood of certain disasters coming to your doorstep is unique. So why would you use content and checklists that are not particular to your situation? In this video, we're going to dial into your unique family and your situation to help you get started in preparing in a way that won't miss any check boxes and make sure you have what you need in that disaster situation coming up. Guys, more than ever before, there are so many different things that can come to your doorstep and to your family. So everything from the continuing escalating civil unrest and government instability, wars are popping up all around the world. There's supply chain issues. There are so many different issues that could particularly affect your family, let alone just the unique needs of your family. And so it is important that we be prepping, but prepping in a general way is not enough. And so that's why in this video, we've got to talk about this topic of preparedness strategies and the basics of developing them. And there's so many different scenarios that can come at you. So that's why we're going to talk about this preparedness strategies for every scenario. Now, to tackle this, there is a reason why you're on this video. And there are so many different things that could come at you. And again, I mentioned some of those, from civil unrest that's escalating and increasing instability in what is going to happen in the future of our economy, whether that's wars that are popping up in the Middle East and all around the world, whether that's supply chain issues and the increasing instability in our cities. All of these things are coming at you. And so for that reason, there are those that are jumping into threads like these on Reddit. And so on this channel, we dive in, we glean the wisdom from other preppers so that you're not learning, not getting just this information overload. The problem out there is not information lack, it's too much information. So you need somebody to help guide and cut through that information. That's what we do on this channel. And so in this particular thread, this writer or this contributor said, what event or natural disaster made you decide to start prepping? And so as we aggregated this and dialed into what were the top reasons that people in the thread began to start prepping, here's what we found. Everything from natural disasters topping the list by far, down to health crises and even social unrest. Some other things along on the list like media influence, rural living, community influence. Some of these reasons began to tip somebody over the edge. But here's the reality: most people, they experience a natural disaster that is unique to their situation, to their scenario, and it tips them over the edge because they say, yeah, that could happen again. And maybe you won't experience a tornado because you're not in the Midwest. Maybe you will experience a hurricane or vice versa. But whatever it is, it tips you over the edge into prepping, but also strategic prepping for your scenario. And so here's another picture of that same, the same aggregate outcome of that Reddit thread. And we see here this cloud, and we see all these different words on there, from hardships, hurricanes, pandemics, COVID, Sandy, political, personal, lots of different things, right? But the one of the biggest ones that stands out is Hurricane, Sandy, Katrina, because it's when we begin to experience these natural disasters that are unique to our situation, it tips us over into wanting to get prepared, but a general preparedness checklist is not enough. We've got to prepare for those situations. So let's talk about how to think about preparedness, given all of that. So how do you think about preparedness? The key is, number one, to think about preparedness, it means having supplies, having skills, having plans in place. Those three things are absolutely critical. So just to break those down for just a second, when we think about preparedness, it means having supplies. You've got to have the supplies in place that you need, right? And so having the supplies means you thinking through, how does your family have everything that it needs for food, for water, for shelter, for all these different things, right? But having thought through those things, if you haven't thought through the skills, in other words, how to use some of those things that you've gathered, the supplies themselves may become useless. And so you've got to think about, how do I cook this food? How do I use these tools? How do I think through if I've got to bug out and travel to somewhere to be ready for that? But then that's where the third part comes in of planning. So having the supplies, having the skills, but then also having the planning in place so that you know where you're going to go. What are you going to do in a given situation? So each of those pieces together, when you put them together, equals preparedness. So we've got to talk about this a little more in depth. Let's talk about this now. So there's types of emergencies that can come to your doorstep. We said that here in the intro. And later in this video, I'm going to give you a tailored resource that you can begin to implement and use in your unique situation to identify what you should do. So we'll talk about that later. But for now, let's talk about the types of emergencies that you could run up against, right? So everything from chemical emergencies, viruses, drought, earthquake, extreme heat, fire, flood, flu, food safety, highway safety, hurricanes, landslides, nuclear explosions, poisoning, power outages, terrorism, thunderstorms, tornadoes, tsunamis, volcanoes, water safety, wildfire, and winter storms. Those are alphabetically organized, but there's going to be some on that list that are going to jump out to you because you're going to know your situation. I'm not, but you're going to know in this particular part of the country, in this particular area, we tend to get a lot of hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, whatever it might be. And so you're going to begin to look at this list right now. And as you begin to think about preparedness strategies, think about what is it that jumps out to you on this list. We'll come back to that here in just a second. So the other thing that we got to think about when it comes to preparedness strategies is short-term versus long-term preparedness. Short-term preparations, you're going to want to think about the 72-hour emergency kit. What is the food, the water, and the basic supplies like shelter, and then also the items that you're going to need to be able to bug out and get to another location to be prepared for the first 72 hours. Most people, when they think of prepping, they think of this. They think of what are those things I need to have on my shelf? What do I need to do to be able to make it through that first initial challenge of the natural disaster? But they don't think about long-term preparations, and that's a part of it as well. We've got to think about sustainable living. Having made it through the first few hours of a challenge, if that challenge should go on, we've got to think beyond just the preps to the skills and the planning, to where we're learning gardening, water purification, long-term food storage, so that we can adapt to whatever outcome may come from that prepping situation. So the reality is, bottom line, plan for both. Be ready both for immediate emergencies and for prolonged situations. Putting all of this information together, the types of emergencies, and then thinking short and long term, this is how we begin to approach this idea of strategic preparedness. Now, finally, you're going to want to tailor this strategy to you, right? That's what the whole point of this video is. You've got to personalize your plan. Assess your personal and family needs, your dietary, your medical, your specific vulnerabilities that might be true to your family. If you've got disabilities, if you've got inability to move due to a health condition, or you can't be too far from a doctor, or you can't move at a certain speed, all those things you need to assess in your personal plan. And then you've got to create a customized approach, considering your location, where you live, the lifestyle that you live, and the lifestyle you want to live on the other side of this disaster, and the resources at hand, the resources you might need to get. You need to tailor your strategy. So that's where we're going to go in the rest of this video. So we've got to start by assessing your needs. That's the next part of this process of developing basic strategy preparedness. So I want to point you to this resource. You can get it linked in the video below. It's called a 15-minute readiness checker. We put this together for a quick 15-minute assessment to get you into action. Now, having the right stuff is only part of it. Having a checklist of what to gather is only part of it. You need to know what action you should take. And if you get that first domino going, more dominoes are going to fall. And that's why you don't need just long lists of information. What you need is to get to the right next step of action. That's what this resource does. Safety first, but then essential preparedness, and helps you to finally see that final check mark to take command and build resilience and confidence for the scenario in front of you by taking the first right action. And so I invite you, hey, hit up that link in the description below, totally free to you, a resource that we want to offer to you. Okay, so how do we begin to assess? We've got to identify specific needs, health and medical needs. Those are going to be unique to you and to your family, and you're going to want to ensure you have an adequate supply of medications, of first aid kits. You're going to know what you need as you begin to write down what are all of the ongoing chronic conditions we have, or the scripts that we need to have filled. Make sure that you've got that in place. And then household size. So having grabbed a plan for preparing for emergencies, if you don't tailor that to your unique household size and each member's needs for food, water, and personal items, which can also vary, right? You may just have some things in place, but not actually have exactly what you need for your situation. So that's the other dynamic we've got to think through, is identifying specific needs, right? Okay, so then you've got to do a risk assessment, local risks, identify threats in your area. So you can go back to that slide on this video and pause the screen. What are the threats that are likely for your area? Whether that's hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, civil unrest. There's a long list of things that could be likely in your local area. You're going to have to assess and know that. And this risk assessment is going to lead you to the action point, and that's the most critical point, right? And then so you're going to do basic risk assessment, not just local risks that are unique to your area, but basic risk assessment on just how to think about risks in general. And so research the local emergency plans that are common in your area. What is already available? What is the government going to do? What are people around you, neighborhood watch, those kinds of things going to be doing? And then historical data. How often is your area hit by a tornado or a famine or a tsunami or a hurricane? And then having done that basic risk assessment, that's going to tell you how much and how frequent you need to check these preps, right? Okay, so questions to ask yourself so that you are thinking through all of this and ready to go. These questions are going to help you to begin to develop that preparedness strategy mindset and then the strategy itself. And so I want to invite you to just grab a piece of paper right now and begin to think through this. Number one, what emergencies are likely? You need to be prepared, but not just generally prepared, but prepared for the likely emergencies. That's the starting place. And then we'll expand to prepare for more from there. We all are always going to be growing in this, right? But you've got to start with what emergencies are likely. And then from there, what resources do you have? You probably already have some resources in place, and you've got to begin to gather those resources, but also think through the development of those resources. So that's growing that stockpile of resources that's unique to your situation, your family situation, and those emergencies, but also beginning to develop a plan for FIFO. If you haven't heard that term, first in, first out, you've got to begin to rotate your stock and make sure that it's current and you're checking on it so that it is there when you need it. It's reliable when you need it. So having begun to gather some of those resources, assessing the resources you have, and also resources available to you in the community around you, the city maybe, or your state, which is much more unreliable, but being aware of those resources can help you to begin to assess and identify the next steps. And then finally, main concerns. What are the concerns that you might have for your family, for your goals? So everybody's not going to have the same goals when it comes to strategic preparedness, or your lifestyle. What are the things that are your concerns and your goals for your lifestyle and for your future? And so not everybody's going to think the same way about that. You need to write down, maybe talk to your family to make sure that you're on the same page about those things. Having asked yourself those questions, that's going to set you up for developing a strategic preparedness strategy that will work for you, for your family, and for your future. So again, I'm going to point you to this resource in the link or in the description below. Action is the most important part here. It's not about information. There's so much information out there, and that's what I want to caution you with as we end here, is that you need to hear this caution that the reality is there is a lot of information out there about preparedness. The problem is most of it is general and most people don't take action. What this video and that resource below, if you click it, get it free, and start using it, will do, it will start the first domino effect of action that is specific to your situation. Because action will then lead to more action, and you'll eventually have that momentum going, and you will be learning how to think like a prepper and have what you need and continue to grow in that preparedness mindset and lifestyle. That all starts with getting into action in the right way for your situation. That's what that resource does. So make sure to do that. Leave a comment below. What are you doing to prepare for your particular situation, your family? Are there other things that you'd like to hear us talk about on this channel? Leave a like on the video and subscribe to it. That all tells us that you are connecting with this content and you want more of it. And we will see you guys next time.